This is a HeadGum podcast.
Shannon, CG, Lauren, and Mel form the Nerds of Prey. A group of ladies bonded by comics, gaming, film, television, and fandom culture. Hang out with them bi-weekly as they dig into the very things that make them loud and proud nerds. Available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play. Also, check out their Patreon at patreon.com/Nerds of Prey.
Hey, I'm Effie Brown, and I'm a producer of Dear White People, Real Women Have Curves, and recently you probably saw me on HBO's Project Greenlight. And you are listening to the Black Girl Nerds podcast.
Hi, I'm Melody Cooper, director of The Sound of Darkness, and you're listening to Black Girl Nerds podcast.
I am Felicia Butterfield-Jones, and I serve as the head of Black Community Engagement for Google. And you're listening to the Black Girls Nerds podcast.
This is Mildred Lewis, creator of Agents of the Realm, and you are listening to Black Girl Nerds podcast.
We are the Lucas Pros, and we were just on Black Girl Nerds podcast, and it's fantastic. And listen to it every day, every hour, because they are awesome.
This is Simone Missick, and I am Misty Knight, and you are listening to the Black Girl Nerds podcast.
Hello everyone, my name is Malik Forte. I am a professional nobody, but you might have seen my work on Nerdist.com or soon Bleacher Report, and you are now listening to the Black Girl Nerds podcast.
Hey y'all, this is LeVar Burton, Kunta, Jordy, Reading Rainbow Guy. You are listening to the Black Girl Nerds podcast. It is the bomb diggity podcast on the interwebs, but you don't have to take my word for it.
5, 6, 7, 8. Holla boys and girls, it's the BGN. Coming from the Marvel world to the DC friends. All the way from Hollywood to the PCN. She defends everyone from sleazy men. Won't apologize for spitting Shonda rhymes. The space that we make is never colonized. Talking games and movies and actors. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Yeah, better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Ha. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 102 of the Black Girl Nerds podcast. My name is Jamie and I am your host. This episode is titled Kym Whitley, The Few, and Intersectional Feminism. 3 segments. In our first segment, we have a roundtable discussion about feminism and intersectionality, as well as its lack thereof. A lot of this conversation has stemmed from the Women's March that happened shortly after Trump's inauguration, to the exchange over at Sundance between Salma Hayek and Jessica Williams, and also Valerie Complex, one of our contributors on blackgirlnerds.com, wrote a very compelling article called The Do's and Don'ts of Intersectionality in Donald Trump's America, and we talk about various talking points in that article in this discussion. In segment 2, we invite back Sam Benjamin of The Few. Caron sits down with him on a one-on-one, and he talks about the latest edition on this web series that features superheroes. It just launched on February 2nd on YouTube, and he gives you all of the details of what to check out. In our third segment, we invite Kym Whitley. You know her from so many TV shows and films. And she's currently in a film called Fist Fight, starring Ice Cube, Charlie Day, Tracy Morgan, and Jillian Bell. That's currently released in theaters nationwide. So that's our show. If you haven't done so already, make sure to go ahead and go to iTunes and give us a rating. Leave us a comment. Leave us a good one. Let us know what you think about the show. And don't forget, you can check us out on other podcast streaming apps such as SoundCloud, Spreaker, Stitcher, and Google Music, as well as Spotify. That's our show. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you again next week. In our first segment, we have a roundtable discussion about intersectionality in feminism. This roundtable features myself, Mel, Caron, Jacqueline, and Tora. We talk about the Women's March, the Sundance situation between Salma Hayek and Jessica Williams, as well as what women can do better to support one another as feminists. Take a listen. Thank you so much for tuning into this special edition of the Black Girl Nerds podcast. This is a roundtable edition, I should say, of the Black Girl Nerds podcast, and we're going to talk about intersectional feminism. It's a topic that's very pervasive on our site and our platform, and we talk about it daily on Twitter. And I have a roundtable of women that's going to have this conversation with me. So I am very pleased to present to you co-hosts Mel, Caron, Jacqueline, Tora. Thank you, ladies, for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
So I'm really excited to talk about this because there's so many things that have just happened just this past week with intersectional feminism and even its lack thereof, with the exchange that happened between Salma Hayek and Jessica Williams, to the Women's March that happened. And Valerie Complex, who couldn't be on our podcast this evening, but she recently wrote this very compelling article. You guys should check it out on blackgirlnerds.com. The name of the article is called The Do's and Don'ts of Intersectionality in Donald Trump's America. And she goes over a list of, sort of an instructional manual, if you will, to white people of what you should do and what you should not do when it comes to understanding what it is to be a feminist and what intersectionality means for people of color and for marginalized voices. So let's start with the march, because a large part of this piece is stemmed from the Women's March that took place right after Trump's graduation. Trump has got me just all in shambles. So it did feel like graduation from kindergarten. Yeah, seriously. After Trump's inauguration on January 20th, the Women's March happened. So I want to talk to each of you about that. And first of all, I want to get some of your thoughts on what did you think about the march as a whole? What did you think about? What was your takeaways of the women that were there, some of the signage that was there, the press reactions to it, the celebrities that appeared? So why don't we go in order so that way everybody gets a chance to talk? We'll go in this order: in Mel, Caron, Jacqueline, Tora, and then Deandra.
All right, then. This is Mel. I think I was mostly conflicted about the march. I'm glad it was happening and that it caught fire in so many places. It was nice to see so many people out there and, making their voices heard. But at the same time, there were some things that were questionable, some things that were insulting, some things that were problematic as hell. One of the examples is I could not stand how many people emphasized that it was a peaceful protest.
Oh, God, yeah.
It made me livid because it showed a level of privilege that they can't even contemplate. It's like most protests, I know they're specifically referencing the Black Lives Matter protests. They're not saying it, but they are. And then like 99% of those were peaceful. They were just met with resistance. There is a difference. There is a difference where you went there unarmed, you're sitting down, you have a sign in your lap, and then the cops show up in riot gear with batons and tear gas ready to start something. There is a difference. And these women came out here and they put their little, can I say pussy hat? They put their little hats on cops, they took pictures, and it was so cute, thinking, oh my God, you see, this is all everybody has to do, not even realizing that it's a completely different situation for them. The cops weren't going to come there with riot gear. They weren't going to attack those women. And then they don't even realize the problem, the dichotomy of what was happening. And it just blew my mind. It was just one of the things that annoyed me so much. That's all I'm going to say for now. I might say
it annoyed me just to add to that Kristen Bell's comment, too. about the peaceful marches. And I'm just like, really, Kristen, did you have to say that? Like, that just diminished the whole value of doing this march, is talking about the negative aspect of, oh, well, you know, it's good to see that it was peaceful. And it felt like it was like just one of those microaggressions that white people like to put on us. And it was, incredibly unnecessary.
Like, you're feeding into the narrative that people of color, we're violent.
Yeah.
We are violent, we're angry, we're out there causing trouble, when that's not the case. You just don't want to see the case. You want to see the stereotypes. That's what you want to see, and that's the problem.
It was a complete denial of privilege as white women, because what was being protected was white women, and they don't understand that even though they may not be held, even though there's still sexism, white women are still protected over the rest of us. They don't get that. So they're not going to be policed the same way we are. So when they're the ones that are coming out in these marches in droves, policing is not going to look the same way. That's why when we do have these marches and we do have white people who come out to Black Lives Matter marches, you see them forming when they're, actually about the resistance, you see them sometimes forming walls around the Black people, because they know they're less likely to be hit. They're less likely to be, brutalized by police officers. Yeah. They understand their privilege.
Yeah. This is Caron, and I had a conversation the night before the march. A good friend of mine, an activist in her own right, asked me whether or not I was going. And I said, I'm not going to that white people shit. And she said, but it's being organized by, women of color and, women from all over. And I said, okay, well, that's nice, but watch it end up being some white woman shit. Because, they take everything. They co-opt everything. Nothing is original. Yeah. Now, the day of the march, I will say that I was really floored when I not only saw how many people were participating, but I saw how many countries were participating. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That blew my mind. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And also looking through the lens as an American, this is what we see happen in other countries. This isn't what happens in the US. Mm-hmm. These kinds of protests, these kinds of large scale protests against the government is what we see in other countries. This is what you see on the evening news, on the world news tonight, and it's happening here because one thing really confuses me, for lack of a better term, because I don't deal in confusion, but how all them white women show up for this march, but so many white women voted for Trump. I'm not really getting that. That's a disconnect that I'm having there.
And that did not to be reminded of that.
Like guilt.
It's like, bitch, but you did this. Why are you here? And then I saw different interviews. I saw different women, being interviewed by different news outlets. Cause usually I have about 6 screens going at one time with different news outlets. And, it was just really disturbing to me, the, lack of responsibility. I heard a lot of words on stage from white women who were featured in the news. You would have thought that this was headlined as a white women's concert, because the only people that got airtime was Madonna, Ashley Judd, and
Scarlett
Johansson. That's all you saw.
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson, that bitch don't speak for me.
I had problems with her speech.
We have so many issues with women, and my biggest issue is we are last in everything. We show up, we fight for everybody. But where the fuck were all these people for the last 5 years while we were getting shot and beat in the street?
Yeah.
Where were all of these people for the last 5 years when violence against Black bodies is happening on camera every single day? Where is the outrage and the protest when these Black women are being raped by police officers, getting pulled over on the side of the road? Where were you? So don't talk to me about feminism and pussy hats when you stayed your pussy home. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Now, if you're going to fight, let's fight. But understand this. Y'all learn this from us. You got this from us. And you need to give credit where credit is due. And I was offended that with all of the magnificent, brilliant Black and brown voices that were at that march and had the mic, not one of them got featured on the news. Not one of them got pulled in for an interview. Not one of them got pulled up to be the spotlight or the highlight. Even the woman who organized the march, she wasn't even the voice of her own march because white women overtook it. So my issue with this march, I was really like what other people did in other countries and what people did in other cities. It was remarkable. The numbers were remarkable, but you cannot remove the issue that exists within those numbers. Where the fuck have y'all been for the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years when we've been getting our asses kicked? Where have you been? So now you're going to defend everybody else. And I think it was a little while ago when, who made that tone deaf statement that said, we fought for you, for the gays and the Blacks, and now it's time for you to fight with us.
Patricia Arquette.
Patricia Arquette. Yeah, bitch. Excuse me. I'm having issues. That's kind of what it feels like. It's almost like they want us to thank them for showing up. We always show up. That's what we do. We carry the weight and we show up everywhere for everything. But where the hell were all of these women when Black bodies were swaying in the breeze? I need to know.
Jacqueline?
I think they were watching Friends reruns. I don't know, personally. My girls. I mean, I had a different approach to the whole women's march because I was at Sundance for the women's march when it happened. And so there was a part of me that felt in this, cinephile, very white area that like, if I don't show up, there might not be that many Black faces. So I did show up and I felt a part that I kind of had to show up for that. I did feel the uncomfortableness that I always feel when I have to put on the cloak of white feminism, because everything that you were saying, Caron, is exactly what I was saying, like going into it. It's like, it is so funny how this is all of a sudden a focus for y'all when we have literal like video shots of people getting blown away and y'all don't care. Nothing's happened to y'all yet. As awful as Donald Trump is, he's not done anything as of yet to y'all. We have physical evidence of things done to Black and brown bodies all the time. And it's like y'all like got that like Mariah gif where she's like, I don't see what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's ridiculous. But I did notice in Sundance, for whatever reason, and probably because it is Sundance, and we can get into that, the Black and brown voices were actually featured. Sundance does a daily recap video of the events, and they made it a conscious effort to actually show like Dolores, the immigration civil rights leader. She had a documentary at Sundance, and they made sure to prominently feature her, and they prominently featured Rashida Jones, and they prominently featured Jessica Williams in their recap video. And this is before all the drama happened. And I was actually really proud to see that. And that video goes before every film that's played at Sundance. Like, it's not just like, oh, hey, you got to go to their website to check this out. So I did like that, but, it's always uncomfortable for me to be in white feminism. It always has been. It just always has been, because I've experienced as much racism and lack of inclusivity from white liberal feminists than I have from, honestly, any redneck in my entire life growing up in the South. And that's my own truth. I know that's not everybody's, but that's just what I've seen. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think my big takeaway from it, as far as I knew I could not show up, but I didn't feel like I really accomplished anything. It was more I felt like I had to show up because I had to represent something in a place where I felt, I mean, in Dallas, Austin, wherever else you want to go, I felt that, you know, at least there's going to be someone there to maybe speak to our truth. I did not necessarily think that was going to happen in Park City, Utah. I was surprised to the contrary, but going into it, I was like, if I don't show up, who knows? You know what I mean? That's what I thought.
Tora?
So I kind of felt the same way Caron did about it at first. I was kind of just, I didn't have the space, especially after the election results. I didn't have the space, I think, to share that space with white women, knowing the percentage of them that had elected Trump. So I didn't have it in me to share this march with them, knowing, you know, that we're going to be marching in solidarity, but also I'm going to be looking around like, which one of y'all was?
Yeah, exactly.
They're all suspect.
Was like I knew that under, like, I knew I would be able to smile for part of it, but in my soul, I was going to have that underlying like suspicion, and I just wasn't going to be able to put on the solidarity that is needed in those moments. And I couldn't, and I knew that the way that white women need you to perform solidarity a lot of times is taxing, and I can't. So in reading about it from outlets and in seeing pictures of it and signs, a lot of the things that struck me most were the lack of intersectionality within it, even to things like the pussy hats. So with it not being trans inclusive, so this is supposed to be a women's march, but we're all wearing pussy hats. And I get that it's supposed to be tongue in cheek to the line about, you know, Donald Trump grab him by the pussy. But I read, you know, several, you know, articles or just think pieces about trans women who, you know, this put them in a different space, because this to them is a symbol of something that it reminds them of genitals, because to them this is saying, if you're a woman, these are the genitals you're supposed to have, because a pussy is what represents a woman. So it's very genital womanhood. And these are the types of things that I think white feminism does, like writing messages on tampons and slapping them everywhere. And I'm just like, so there's definitely people who could use, or not tampons, pads, and slapping them everywhere. And I'm like, there's definitely people who could use those pads. Like, you just out here giving away, like, you wasting pads. Another thing with the pussy hats, I was like, all these pussy hats are pink. Like, everybody got pink pussies and not one brown pussy hat. Not okay.
Mine is sort of a brownish mauve. More of a mocha.
That's what I'm saying. But they're all like,
I'm not telling my pussy color on this podcast. I don't care how much I love y'all.
Not even an ombre pussy hat. I'm just saying.
I appreciate y'all giving me that truth, though.
All bright pink pussy hats, and it's speaking to them, thinking, oh, all these pink pussies for all these white lady, you know, all these white lady woman vaginas. And again, that's just a very exclusive way of thinking about this woman's march being for a specific type of woman. And it's not very intersectional. And a lot of times when those things were brought up, white women responded by saying, you know, why are you being divisive? We should just support all.
You're too sensitive, girl.
I'm so done with them on that. I can't listen to you anymore about being divisive. We are different. It does not mean we cannot champion the same things, but we are different. Exactly. If you don't believe me, let's
and
both of us go shopping.
There's nothing wrong with that. I don't understand the idea that celebrating differences, that there's an infringement upon your livelihood as a woman, as a person, that because because I'm Black, because I'm female, and because I celebrate my difference, that somehow is a bad thing. I don't understand that.
That in and of itself is the essence of privilege, though, isn't it? In and of itself, when you're in a conversation with someone and you are celebrating your differences, you are mentioning the fact that you have something that's different than they. And they wait a minute, this conversation is about me. Bring it back to me because it's all about me. Right. That's what white privilege is all about.
And when you're used to seeing images of yourself, then you don't think that that's different. You think that that's the norm, that's
right. And because it's no longer about you, it's disruptive.
I agree with you. I really don't have any more to add to this other than the fact that I just found that it was really lazy to ask Madonna to be a speaker for this event. It's like, oh, let's find someone who is like a really large, super popular feminist icon at one point in our history. Oh yeah, Madonna, like she embodied that at one point. Let's go for her. Madonna has not really spoken to me as a feminist. And yes, she embodied a lot of sexual freedom back in the 80s and all of that and was progressive in those areas. But she's certainly not intersectional. And she hasn't spoken on any issues that affect people of color and women of color.
And we'll drop the N-bomb on any moment that she gets a chance.
Right. So
she lets her son say the word nigga, didn't she?
Well, there you go. So
lets herself say the word nigga to her son. I thought that's what it was.
Well, the word nigga was involved, so that was her.
I think it was both. I think she did both.
I lost my train of thought. But anyways, I just think that they could have done better with that. And also Ashley Judd, I have to say, her speech just blew me away. I really appreciated her sentiments. She's really trying. She's really trying, and I appreciate that she spoke about Black women and all women of color, and the fact that there's a lot of inequality with respect to pay and all of those things. So I'm glad that she spoke out about that. But with just the celebrities, they just missed the mark. They could have gotten so many more women out there. There were some transgender voices. I know Raquel Willis, who I follow on Twitter, was at the Women's March and spoke, but then they cut off her mic at some point, I believe. I saw her tweeting about that. I don't know if Laverne Cox was there or not.
Janelle Monáe was there.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, that's right. She was there. But it was just
a good speech.
It's just like few and far between. It just could have been so much more. So, yeah. But I did all of my hoorays on social media, and I retweeted like the women that I really like. So, okay, I want to move on to our next topic because this was really controversial as well on Twitter. And this involved the exchange between Salma Hayek and Jessica Williams over at Sundance Film Festival. So, does anybody want to explain what happened?
Oh, please. Let me tell y'all. Because first of all, this was a day after I ran into her on the street, as I told you, Jamie. And I was just like, you're the most amazing person on the world. And apparently that night she got gaslit by, I don't know, whatever. It's whatever. Mm-hmm. So for those of you that didn't read, on the LA Times, there was a luncheon with prominent women in Hollywood, Shirley MacLaine, Alfre Woodard, Jessica Williams, Salma Hayek. Jill Soloway was also there, in fact. And in it, they discussed, feminism and what they need to be doing, especially in Hollywood, talking about things like, income equality and getting better roles and fighting for roles that speak to a truth rather than a stereotype. And Jessica Williams in that made the point that we all feel, which is that she feels that she gets shouted down a lot of the times when she speaks out about the fact that it is different as an African American female as opposed to just being a white female. And it's more difficult as a trans female or an LGBTQ female. And in the exchange, I'm going to paraphrase as I pull this up real quick, but basically Salma Hayek stated that she felt that, you know what, she's been in Hollywood for 50 years, and that back when she started, it was that, a Hispanic or Mexican immigrant like she was not even going to get an opportunity to be in a movie, let alone open a movie. And now she's able to do those things. So we have things and opportunities now that we never had. And so you can't really be as divisive as you are. You have to celebrate the fact that, we have more now than what we used to. And in it, Jessica Williams basically said, she's like, you don't really know what it's like for my truth. Like, I know that's your truth, but that's not the way it is for me. And it was really like a heated exchange. And what you can tell is that, normally in these kinds of, happy-feely breakfast lunches, the women don't necessarily get down into the nitty-gritty about the fact that, they may have differences, it's supposed to be kumbaya and whatever, but in a kind of unguarded moment, they all kind of told it like it is. And the thing I really hated the most about all of it, on top of the fact that Shirley MacLaine at 82 felt the need to chime in with her, I don't even know, opinion, if you could call
her
it
white
that.
opinion.
Yeah. But like she said to her, if you're not a woman of color and you're not a female, what are you? And Jessica Williams, to her brilliance, which is like, I'm the finest Black chick on the planet and I'm Jessica, period. And I was just like, I love you, because that's the truth. It's not a choice. I know who I am, but these things are a part of who I am. And whenever you just say all sisters together and we're all women, you're trying to essentially erase a part of who I am. Mm-hmm. It is so dismissive. And then, she, in the continued exchange, she's like, why do you have to be so angry about it? And so here you have another woman calling a Black woman an angry Black woman, which is the most
a trope.
The most dismissive phrase as a Black woman, in my opinion, personally, that you can say is that. Because it is literally, you cannot have an opinion at that point. You cannot have an emotion at that point. You cannot have a dissension. The only thing you are allowed to be, and that trope doesn't fall, is like, oh, everything's beautiful and sunshiny and great. If you were anything else, they could just say that to you and you're just taken down. Mm-hmm. And I finally found out what Shirley MacLaine said, find democracy inside. Bitch, please.
I don't even know
what does that mean?
I don't know.
Was she channeling one of her other lives? What the fuck was she talking about?
And I think there was also a moment too where Salma Hayek told Jessica Williams to look her in the eye because Jessica looked away. Yeah. And she's like, look me, can I see your eyes, in a very condescending kind of tone. And that in itself was just really disrespectful.
And then
to me,
keep calling her baby.
And calling her baby. Right.
What she said was, when you're not a woman and when you're not Black, what's left? And I'm like, what does that even mean? Yeah. And how would I know? Because I've always been Black and a woman.
And the victimism. She said, I don't see myself as a victim. You're trying to label me as a victim. I'm trying to explain to you my truth. It's such, I just can't.
The issue I have with Salma Hayek, well, the multiple issues I have with Salma Hayek, but we're just going to focus on this one right now, is you came to America and built your business off of your back. You built it on your body. And now you want to talk about how equal we all are? Mm. When you came here, you built your career on your sexuality. On your back, boo. You made a couple of independent films on your own, married a billionaire, and lost your damn mind. Because you forget how they used to talk about you. Because I remember, she's only 50. Mm-hmm. I remember how they used to talk about Salma Hayek, only in terms of her tits and ass. Mm-hmm. How soon we forget. She has a very short memory, but again, this is a woman of multi-ethnicity who thinks she's white. She asked whether or not she qualifies as a woman of color. I'm like, bitch, You got all the colors of the rainbow. And you asking?
I think she was expecting a fight, and that's why she asked that.
I think she wanted a fight, and I think she wanted to draw something out of Jessica. I'm glad she didn't take the bait, but I would have liked to have seen Jessica fight back. I think in that room, she was a bit intimidated, and Kat Core chimes in. Kat Core is that girl in the corner in high school who always gets her ass kicked because she don't know when to talk. She's the one that gets slapped. We can't all be friends. No, because you don't see me. No. And I had a conversation the other day about what erasure actually is. A good friend of mine and former colleague posted a post that was like, it's not the color of your skin. It's the color of your spirit. It's like, shut up. Shut up. She was, are you colorblind? And I wrote on her Instagram and her Facebook page, I certainly hope not, because that's called erasure, and that's a form of racism. But well, maybe she responded and said, well, maybe I'm naive. I said, no, you are far from naive. But let me tell you what you are doing. Because just because you don't call yourself a racist doesn't mean you didn't inherit racist behavior. And that is the definition of racism. Racist behavior and racist speech. So I'm not really understanding what Salma Hayek, girl, you still have an accent, boo.
I just don't understand. Okay, so I just don't understand where it is that Salma Hayek thinks that she's elevated to, because
girl, money makes
that
some people
she
crazy.
Has gotten to a place where she can separate herself from her identity as a Mexican woman and as a Mexican and a woman, and when she's being hired. But when you were cast as a taco in Sausage Party, do you think that they saw you as someone other than a Mexican woman? Do you think that when they gave
you were cast, she was cast as
what? A taco.
In Sausage Party. I wonder, when they were giving her that role, did they see her as someone other than that? Did they say, she's fabulous, we need to give it to her? Or did they give it to her because of that? I'm just wondering. Because she said she would never want a role based on something like that. She would turn it down because it would be demeaning. But she did.
I think she got a real short memory on her career.
The thing that I cannot get beyond with Salma Hayek is the condescension when she was addressing Jessica. Jessica didn't deserve that. That young woman has worked her tail off to get to where she is, but she did not deserve that. Not in any way. That kind of condescension will get your ass kicked.
I'm also remembering,
I would have jumped across that table.
Playing a role as a spicy, angry maid on 30 Rock, I think. I'm wondering if she had ascended beyond her role. You know, I don't know. Maybe
she's so spicy.
Maybe there's something we're missing, you know?
Yeah, Gucci.
I think she just didn't like being called out. It's the problem that a lot of... Yeah, she didn't like being called out. And I think what she said before about what are you when you're not Black? What are you when you're not a woman? And my answer to that is I'm not myself, because my personality is made by a combination of all the experiences that I have been through. And those experiences are framed by my gender. They are framed by my race. There is a reason that this lunch was a woman's lunch, is because women have a different perspective. They have different experiences in Hollywood than men. If a man had asked Selma, what are you when you're not a woman? She would have been pissed off. But she thinks it's okay to ask Jessica because she thinks in her mind she's coming from a higher place. She's more privileged than Jessica, so she can treat her like that. And Jessica, I think she handled herself very well, because you got to remember, she's 26 years old. She is so much younger than everybody else in this room. All these people have way more experience than she does.
But she's probably the most recognized at that table, too.
I think you nailed it, Mel. I think that, Jessica put her in her place. She got very offended by saying, look, I'm Arab and Mexican. And then she had used the term baby when she had said that phrase. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Jessica's young. She's in her 20s. Jessica is very accomplished. I mean, Jessica Williams was she was gunning for the role of being on The Daily Show as the next host. And there's also a lot of anti-Blackness happening there with Salma Hayek. So, I think that to ignore that aspect of it, I think, that's a big part of what had happened in this exchange. And it's unfortunate because Salma comes from a very privileged background. I believe her father is a politician. So she has a very wealthy upbringing, and then she's married now to a billionaire. So she comes from a place of privilege, and she's not like a woman of color who's had to struggle. So it's a different experience for her. So she may not understand what Jessica means when she's talking about having a different experience as a woman of color. And that's probably why she got really super defensive about it, because she feels like, well, wow, how dare you tell me that, this is my ethnicity and, there's nothing wrong with what, my lineage is just because, you've dealt with your struggle. So it's unfortunate that this exchange got brought down to this level between Salma and Jessica, but, it is what it is.
Did y'all know who was at that luncheon, by the way? Have y'all investigated and seen who was there? Because I looked it up afterwards. Did y'all hear about that?
Yeah, Dee Rees was there. Dee Rees, she directed the
Mudbound.
And there was the other film that she directed.
Oh, last time. Oh, God. I can't remember it now, but I'll remember in a second.
Yeah, the name escapes me. We had done a live tweet about it, too. Name escapes me, but yeah, she was there. Like you said,
from
Jill Holloway was there. Transparent creator.
Alfre Woodard was there.
Yep, Alfre Woodard was there.
Dakota Fanning, Jill Soloway. You already said. Oh, what's her name? Sanaa Lathan was there as well, and Alfre Woodard. Yeah, Sanaa Lathan was there. Also,
Pariah. That's the film that I know her for.
Yeah. And Bessie, the Queen Latifah one.
Yeah. And it should be noted that Dee Rees is a queer woman of color, and she spoke up at that luncheon as well. And
Jill Soloway, I will admit, as much as we don't love her, she actually spoke up as well.
She spoke up. And Jessica mentioned, because there was an exchange between Roxane Gay and Jessica on Twitter, and Jessica mentioned that the only women in the room that did speak up were the queer women in that room.
I noticed that within the article reading that they were trying to give Salma some perspective on it, and she just was not trying to hear it. She just she wasn't trying to hear that perspective at all. What was most astonishing for me was after she asked Jessica who she was, she asked Jessica, "Who are you when you're not Black and you're not a woman?" And Jessica very clearly lined out to her, like, I know who I am. I'm some days I'm just a Black woman, but, I'm the baddest bitch in the world, basically. And Salma Hayek came back with, no. You have to, she came back and basically scolded her and told her she had to do some more digging with who she was. So she told a woman that she needed to find out who she was after she had just told her, I know who I am.
That's like when somebody tells you, I know you better than you know yourself.
That's what she told her. She told her.
Yeah.
That's what you tell children. You tell children you don't know what you're saying. I know I know more than you. She treated Jessica like a child.
It's an abusive statement.
And there was an incident that happened similar to this at Sundance. Apparently Sundance has an issue with the lack of intersectionality and feminism, because Francesca Ramsey, dealt with the same issue with, incidentally, Jill Holloway and also some other white women in the room. Do you know what happened, Jacqueline, in that exchange?
Yeah, so this is what I'll say. So it was Jill Soloway, but the person who she actually got the most into it with was this other chick. And if you give me 1 second, I'll pull her up. But basically, this is what it was. Last year, Sundance invited a lot of YouTube creators to their lab because YouTube was in the process of doing their big partnership, which actually ended up being now what we call YouTube Red. Right. And basically, what they did is they had this show called The Skinny. And The Skinny is this web series that was created by Jessie K. Weiler. And that's her name. And that was the girl that she had the biggest exchange with. And The Skinny is a web series that she made that was produced by Jill Soloway. And they showed it at the YouTube event. And Cheska Lee went to her afterwards and was like, I have some issues with your narrative because, one, it's very, I mean, just to make a short story, make it short, it's very girls in the narrative. Like, it's another major city where there seems to be no brown people except for when they're punchlines. There was an Asian character who was just an awful stereotype. There are no brown people at all in the narrative whatsoever. And it was just really offensive in like so many other ways. I've not actually seen it, but that's basically what she said. And she went up to her afterwards and was like, hey, did you make an effort to try and get different voices? If you guys go to the IMDb page for this show, I mean, it is literally whiter than Christmas. There's nobody black or brown in this. And this is something that YouTube and Sundance are prominently showcasing with YouTube creators of color, because there was other people like Smoothie Freak was there and all of these other different creators of color. And so she's sitting there like, is this what y'all are showing us for real? Like, this is what y'all are like demonstrating to us? And they kind of got in a heated exchange where she basically said it's really hard to find intersectional voices, to which I'm like, bitch, please, you need the University of Google or I don't know, a rock, because they're everywhere. Like it is ignorance. It is a lack of perspective, and it is the fact that there's this little small segment of your world, and if somebody isn't in that, you don't know how to open the door outside of it, which is something that black people and brown people have been having to do their whole life, and you have no experience with it. And the girl got really hot and really heated because obviously it was her night to shine, and she didn't like somebody calling her out on it. And Jessica Lee put up this great Snapchat where she was just like, I'm not giving you your fucking cookies because you tried. And I'm definitely not even going to give you your cookies if you accomplish it. Like, you're being a good person. You're being a normal person. You're basically saying, you know what? I'm not going to be a jerk and I'm going to pay people a decent wage. Here, give me some rewards because I did it. You know what I mean? Like, and that is another thing that we haven't talked about, which we kind of touched on earlier, which is this idea that, like, you give me my cookies for being a good person. Like, ooh, I hired a black person. Yay, me. Right. Bitch, please. You know what? You don't get cookies for that. You don't get to win a little prize of, here, you're a good person. I have to be a good person every day of the week and twice on Sunday, and nobody gives me any cookies about it. And you don't get any either. But yeah, it was just an awful exchange. And it goes back to what I told you guys earlier about Sundance. Sundance, the festival, is actually been ahead of all film festivals if you look at their history about black and brown voices and making sure they have filmmakers of color at their event and prominently feature and focus on them. The problem was always that people would go to Sundance and they would have this big to-do, and then outside of Sundance, the Hollywood machine was like, yeah, but we ain't buying your movie. We don't give a damn. Do you know what I mean? So these independent films wouldn't go anywhere. They wouldn't get sold. They wouldn't get prominently featured, right? And now they are. Like I was just saying, Mudbound actually sold for $2.5 million. And I think that to this moment was the biggest check of Sundance. And the best part about it is it went to a streaming service. Like it went to, I believe, Netflix or Amazon, one of those two. I think it was Netflix. But so now it's going to get to a wide audience. So you don't have to worry about it having to make a ton of money in the box office like you do if it goes to a Fox or what's the other one, like the Weinstein Company. But yeah, I mean, so she threw a fit on Snapchat, and then obviously people drug that bitch very appropriately. And Jill too, although I know her exchange with her was less, but it was still of that defense of like, oh, well, we tried. Like, I don't care if you tried. I really don't. I don't care if you tried.
There is no try.
Like, I don't care. Like, this ain't, Yoda said it. There is no try.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so. But they really want their cookies for that, for trying.
Mm-hmm.
Here's your intersectional try award.
No.
Big Brother Almighty said, you do or you don't, you will or you won't.
Exactly. What was the girl that said intersectionalism that you retweeted the other day, or intersectionalism?
I found out that that's a troll.
Are you serious?
Feminista
Good.
Jones told me she's a professional troll. That it might not even be a girl. Like, it might be a dude trolling people.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel a little bit better, because I was like, did she just make up a word?
Yeah. I read somewhere there's like 500,000 hate bots across the internet. Yeah. So I'm really being more disciplined in how I interact with people on Twitter now, because it's, especially now in the Trumpocalypse, like there's just probably a lot more hate bots just trying to rile people up, and just got to be careful about that. So yeah, that was a troll.
How can you tell if you have one, though? Because I get these weird people too, where I'm like, did you read something I did? Like, I don't know how you came and found me again. Somebody found me like 2 weeks later to yell at me. I'm like, this has got to be a robot.
Usually you can find, I didn't realize it until I looked at their timeline. Well, somebody pointed it out to me, and then I looked at their timeline, and I was like, oh yeah. Like, if they just go to other people's timelines and just say negative shit to them all the time, then yeah, they're a troll. Yeah.
But I mean, a bot. Like, how can you tell a bot? Like, is there like
they're a troll or they're Michael Rappaport?
Girl.
That's redundant, Caron.
I mean,
any final words before we wrap up about intersectionality? Any words of advice for women out there that just need to do better?
Well, that's the advice.
Don't be defensive.
Yeah, don't be defensive. Yeah. Don't center yourself. It's not about you, right?
If you want to be an ally, if you want to help out, you're going to do something wrong. We all do something wrong. It's a learning experience. But if somebody calls you on doing something wrong, how you respond to that is going to determine the kind of ally, quote unquote, that you're going to be. So just consider that. Consider that for a minute. Take a deep breath. Hold in whatever you first thought to say, you second thought to say, you third thought to say. Just be quiet for a little while and listen. Listen, really listen. Don't just wait until you can talk again. Listen.
Girl.
And that's it.
Well, the old folk used to say a couple things. Hard head makes for a soft behind. And if you shut up long enough, you might learn something. And I listen is the key word here. We don't listen to each other. We're quick to discount other people's experiences. And I think that's a shame, because it is the collective of those experiences that make us better people as a whole. And when we ignore that, when we ignore someone's contribution or their potential contribution because of a judgment we have about where they came from or how they live or even who they are, we're the ones who miss out. So I would really like for people, I want white women to stop telling black women that they're overreacting. I want you to stop telling us that our voices don't matter. I want you to stop telling us that you're trying to overtalk us, because it happens all the time. You're not going to win this fight. I'm bigger, badder, louder, and finer. You're not going to win this fight. So instead, when you hear something that makes you uncomfortable, that's your signal to shut the fuck up.
It's actually a good thing to be uncomfortable. It's like a place where you need to be.
Exactly. And you grow from that. You learn, you grow. My advice is check your privilege. No? And I mean, I check my own privilege. Like, I have privilege. As a cis woman, I have privilege. As a able-bodied woman, I have privilege. There was a conversation I saw on Twitter with this woman that has a disability, and she was upset that the Luke Cage TV series featured Misty Knight without her disability. And at first I was feeling some type of way about that. I'm like, don't be putting down Simone Missick like that, you know. But then I was like, you know what? She has a valid criticism. Like,
that's like
she wanted
whitewashing.
the actress. Yeah, she wanted the actress to be played by a disabled actress, and that's a valid criticism to have. So I had to check myself for that moment there in thinking that. So yeah, you know, just as we are marginalized people ourselves, we need to also check our privilege, and that goes the same for everyone else. So that's my words of advice for those folks out there when it comes to intersectionality.
And you know what, Jamie, you bring up a good point, because we rarely talk about the disabled.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm disabled, but I don't look disabled.
Right.
And we never bring it up. Mm-hmm. If you're not someone who's in a wheelchair, or have, if you're not an amputee, or if you don't have a physical sign of your disability, does not mean that you're not disabled. Mm-hmm. And it does not mean that you are not able or capable. But we rarely discuss ableism and disabilities.
Yeah. I would just add to that. I think we talked a lot about celebrities in this because we know they get their voice, and I don't think celebrities shouldn't be a part of the conversation. But somebody who I actually want to applaud in this, not saying that everything she does is great, but this quote was great. Anna Kendrick did a speech a few years ago where she got an award for being a voice in feminism, and she said, you know, I would like y'all to stop coming to me for my quote unquote expert opinion about feminism and intersectionality. She was like, if you want to learn about intersectional feminism, read Roxane Gay. Don't ask me what I know. Okay. And I thought that was the best thing that you could actually say about that, because she's using her voice as a celebrity to cause people to question things and to bring light to things. But more importantly, she's admitting that she should not be the supreme voice in the answers. And I think that says a lot right there. Like, Salma Hayek does not need to be the supreme voice explaining to us what we need and need to do. And, you know, on both sides of that, whether you're good, bad, or indifferent, we need to point out people that have been living and writing and documenting this, scholars, anthropologists, you know, people that have been dealing with this for a long time, and look to them for some truth. If you want to find somebody to educate you on something, don't be going to your old girl's Instagram for inspiration, you know? So that's mine.
I agree. I have 3 things. So, allow Black women